happening, gang? It's your boy Retro back again with another reaction video. Yeah. As you guys all know, Trump is free from the Fulton County Jail for now after his arraignment. But we have a Democrat going off on FANI Willis for bringing about the indictment on Donald Trump and ultimately leading to his mugshot photos being released. I'm excited to see what this Democrat has to say about the Republican Donald Trump. I feel like it says a lot when you got Democrats standing up and speaking out and vouching for the other side. I mean, it just seems like everyone's seeing this blatant weaponization of the Department of Justice, except the Department of Justice. So I'm excited to see what's going on there. We're going to hop straight into it, guys. Make sure you guys like this video and hit that subscribe button for me on the road to the truth. Hop aboard for the journey, guys. Let's get into it.
House Judiciary Committee are demanding Fulton County DA FANI Willis answer questions over her, quote, politically motivated prosecution.
All right, here to react is former House Judiciary Committee Senior Counsel Julian Epstein. Julian, great to see you. Legally, when you saw the mugshot, everyone had a different emotion. But legally, as the president gets set to find out when he's eventually going to get into court with 18 others, is this a strong case? Is this a case you would have brought if you were Miss Willis?
Yeah.
I don't think it is a particularly strong case. And good morning, Brian.
Morning.
I don't think it's a particularly strong case. I think, look, I did not vote for Donald Trump, and I was very critical of the January 6th activities and the riot and the raid on the Capitol. I still think that if you are going to bring a case against the former president, it has got to be a compelling case, not just to 12 jurors, but to the country as a whole. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that this does that. I think there are a number of questions. The first question I have is that I have not heard a good answer to is how did it take the local prosecutors, and I'm saying this as a Democrat, how did it take the local prosecutors 3.5 years, nearly 4 years to bring this case? Yeah. Why have they not answered the question about FANI Willis's conflict of interest? She held a fundraiser for the opponent of one of the targets of this investigation. We haven't heard any answer to that question. Third, generally when a state and a federal government take on a very similar, almost identical case, and this is very similar to the case that is being brought by the Justice Department on the January 6th matter, right, the state would have to have a rather distinct and articulable interest, a separate interest. What is the strong interest the state has here that is not being served by the federal prosecution? So I have real questions about sort of the Democrats say they are just sort of playing it by the books. They're just looking for accountability. That's fine, but I think the Democratic elites and the left elites in both the legal and the political world have got to answer some of these questions. Right. I think beyond that, there are problems with this case, the way it's structured as a RICO case, 19 defendants, 41 counts, hundreds of overt acts. Some of the overt acts that are included are things like tweets and press releases and public statements by Trump declaring, President Trump declaring his victory. Right. The things that are all protected by the First Amendment. And I think the case is going to be, as you and I talked about this last week, Brian, I think the central arguments of this case are going to be questionable. I mean, the case really rests on two essential arguments. Mm-hmm. First, that when President Trump said to Rosenberger, find me 11,780 votes, when he said that, was he asking Rosenberger to falsify the votes? And I think that is the presumption of what the prosecution.
And he will say no.
Central tenet of the prosecution.
Right. So they're basically saying this whole case is subjective. It's based on freedom of speech and based upon if Trump is actually asking Rosenberg to go find votes or to go make up votes. I mean, and honestly, he could go either way with that. So sounds like they don't have him on much.
I think that is the presumption of what the prosecution.
And he will say no.
Central tenet of the prosecution.
Right.
He would say no. And I think him simply saying, find me 11,780 votes.
Right.
I think that is a matter of interpretation, but I don't know that that's necessarily evidence that he's looking to falsify the votes. And I think the other question is, sorry to be long-winded on this, I think the other question is this issue about false elector, this issue about, this false slate of electors. This essentially relied on a legal theory of some of the president's attorneys on the reading of the 12th Amendment, that the vice president has a sole discretion to turn down certain electors from certain states. I think that's a bizarre and extreme theory.
Right.
A couple of very conservative attorneys hold it. I don't know that holding that theory or acting on it is necessarily criminal. So
Julie?
I think there's all kinds of problems in this case.
Yeah, no, obviously. And we've talked about that.
From a Democrat.
Julian, we booked you because you were senior counsel on House Judiciary back in the day.
Chief counsel for the Democrats.
Thank you very much. Makes that a much better business card. Now it sounds like the House Republicans, under the direction of Jim Jordan, they're going after Fani Willis, and they're trying to figure out whether or not she collaborated.
Shout out to Jim Jordan, because he's definitely a patriot right now.
Of Jim Jordan, they're going after Fani Willis, and they're trying to figure out whether or not she collaborated with the Biden administration. We saw this with Alvin Bragg. He opens the case against Trump here in New York City. Then the Republicans went after him, had a field hearing and stuff like that. What do you make of the Republicans going after the local DA?
I don't know at the end of the day that it's going to have all of that much difference. I don't think it had a big impact in New York. I think the New York prosecution is a travesty as well. I've written about that. I did a piece in the Wall Street Journal about that. I think it was an awful case. I think, you know, the House has the jurisdiction. The committee has a jurisdiction to do it. I don't know that it changes the course of the prosecution. I do think one of the things that really bothers me is, you know, Democrats out there saying that they don't want this to be political. They have not answered the question as to why it took nearly 4 years to bring this case. I don't think there's a good answer to it. And dropping this case in the middle of election season, asking former President Trump to be, you know, in 3 or 4 potential trials during the height of election season, I just smacks too much of politics to me. And I don't think Democrats can claim that there's no politics here.
Yep.
Especially when you take headshots and you run on it when you're going for re-election.
The timing of it, and like you said, all these crazy counts, they just need one conviction. So they're slapping him with all ththese counts. Really quickly, yes or no, will this become a federal case?
I think it's likely to, at least for some of the defendants, to meet the removal, Ainsley, the removal requirements. So I think some of the defendants could get a removal. I think you're hinting at a very important question we didn't touch on, which is that because you've got 19 defendants, some of them will have a case for federal removal, some not. I think it's going to be almost impossible to get this case tried before the election.
I think
New York won't be tried before the election, and I think the other two, there are real doubts about whether you will get to those before the election.
Julian, give you credit. You, like Alan Dershowitz, said, hey, I'm not going to vote for Trump. I never will, never have.
But you're fair.
But you're fair. The law is the law. Thank you so much.
And I wish more of us were like that way.
I hear you.
Like that. I think it would help the country a lot.
I hear you. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Wow, wow, wow. There you have it. Coming from a Democrat, you guys. Coming from a Democrat saying, I mean, I can't ignore this any longer. I have to be fair and look at both sides. I mean, they're not playing by the rules. This indictment is clear that it came after the suspicion and the investigation, all the onlookers of David Wise's corruption and abuse of the Department of Justice with his indictment. This is why the Department of Justice and the Biden administration teamed up with FANI WILLIS and the Fulton County prosecution in order to bring about another indictment to kind of divert the attention from David Wise indictment over to this. There you have it, guys. We cannot ignore the signs any longer. This is an obvious and blatant weaponization of the Department of Justice. We need more representatives like Jim Jordan and Colton Moore stepping out and standing up for the American citizens. This is not fair. If it can happen to Donald Trump, it can happen to us. So we have to speak out on the matter. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to the truth, you guys. Make sure you hop aboard for the journey. I'll catch you guys on the next one. We go.